Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the lecture series for the preparation of CLAT examination. In this particular lecture series, we are discussing about the important aspects of the legal reasoning portion of your CLAT examination, specifically focusing over the major legislatures which are going to be asked in your examination. So, in this particular lecture series, we have so far covered with the important areas of the contract law. We have completed the criminal law, and we have also completed the law of torts. We have, to some extent, it also completed the family law, and now we are taking into consideration the important aspects of the constitution, specifically focusing over those parts of the constitution which are actually going to be asked in your examination based on the syllabus of the CLAT consortium. So, in this particular lecture, we are going to discuss about elections as such. The first and foremost, we need to understand why do we need elections in India. We know we need elections in India because, as we, if we remember, when we were discussing about the preamble of the constitution, we talked about that India is a democratic republic. So, when you talk about democracy, when you talk about democracy, so democracy means that the elections needs to take place, and once the election takes place, then the the citizens choose their representative, choose their representative, and that representative is going to govern the country as such. So now there are two type of elections that take place. One takes place at the state level, and another takes place at the central level. Central level means when we're talking about the parliament as such, when we're talking about the union as such. So as you know that there are two type of governments, which if we take example of the current situation, then Mr. Modi, Narendra Modi ji, is the Prime Minister of India. So he is taking the responsibility, the representation at the central level, that is the union level. And if we take example, of a state, then, if you take the example of Uttar Pradesh, then Mr. Yogi Adityanath, Mr. Yogi Adityanath is working at the state level, and at the central level, it is Prime Minister Narendra Singh Modi. So this is how the elections are important, because since India has been considered as a democracy, then uh, the representative shall be chosen by the people and amongst them, and then they will be going to represent the citizens as such. So for example, if you talk about your particular district, then there will be somebody who is going to stand for elections, and then there will be different nominations that will be taking up in consideration for that particular post. Okay, now when we talk about at the district level, if we talk about the district level, then you have MLAs. Okay. When you talk about the state level, it is the member of parliaments. So when you talk about state level, it means that all the states together, all the states together will have the member of parliaments which shall be chosen by the people. And if you talk about the state legislation, it will be in every district there will be member of legislative assembly, which will also be chosen by the people. And once they've been chosen by the people, they among themselves will be choosing one leader who is going to either become the chief minister or the prime minister, depending over the particular position, and uh, depending over that which jurisdiction we are talking about, whether it is about the district level or whether it is about the state level. Now, the first and the foremost question that comes up into the mind whenever we are talking about election is that what exactly is the need? And first thing, that why is it there in the constitution itself. Why is it in the constitution? And third thing, this is second. And what exactly is the need of elections? This is obviously, I have informed you that why we need elections, because India is considered to be a democratic republic, where which the leader is chosen by the citizens itself. And now why it has been mentioned in the constitution, and what exactly is the importance here? The constitution describes that whenever, what exactly should be the procedure, and what will be the posts that will be held by the people who are going to make sure that the election takes place. Now the question first that comes up into the mind is that if we are going to take elections, then the person who is ruling, obviously, if there will be anybody who is coming from the ruling party, they would be wanting that the elections should be in their favor. There are different parties, as you know. There are BJPs, there are NDA, okay. Then there are Congress, okay, UPA. Then you have another party, okay, like BSP, okay. Then other parties, etc. So all these parties are there. So if there is any ruling government coming from different parties, then obviously they will be favoring that particular party itself. So in order to make sure that the elections are taking place, and when the election are taking place, the election should be free and fair. This is perhaps the most important portion, that why is it so that elections has been talked about under the part 15 of the constitution, that why is it necessary to make sure that the election takes place according to the provisions of the constitution. And the answer is, in order to have free and fair election, the provisions has been enumerated under the constitutional framework, and accordingly, if these are being followed, then it ensures that the elections are free and fair. Now let's I suppose the screen is visible to you guys. Now let's try to understand the provisions which has been enumerated under the Constitution of India, which talks about how the election will take place, who is in charge of the election, and what exactly is the procedure. When the citizens are allowed to vote, whether a child can also take part in the elections, and what exactly is the provision through which the elections takes place. And here we are referring not only to the central legislation but also to the state legislature. Okay, let's move forward. If you see on the screen, it is saying that Article 324 of the Constitution of India. Constitution of India. It says superintendence, direction and control of elections to be vested in the Election Commission. The superintendence, direction and control of the preparation of the electoral rolls for and the conduct of all elections to Parliament and to the legislatures of every state, and of elections to the offices of President and Vice President held under the Constitution. Now you see, there are numerous things that has been mentioned here. The first thing is the superintendence, okay, the supervision over the elections, how the elections will take place, that is the direction, and the control over the preparation of the electoral rolls, how the electoral rolls will be prepared, and the conduct of all elections to the Parliament and to the legislatures of every state. Okay, so one is the Parliament, where which it means the member of Parliament. And when we talk about legislatures of every state, we are talking about member of Legislative Assembly. And elections of office of the President, okay, now how the President's election will take place, and the Vice President held under the Constitution shall be vested in the Commission. Okay, then there will be an Election Commission. This is referred to in the Constitution as Election Commission. So Election Commission shall be responsible to make sure that the elections that are going to take place, their superintendence, direction and control shall be vested in the commission, that is the Election Commission. For what exactly are the things that the Election Commission is going to do? It is going to superintend, direct and control about what? about the elections at the central level first, then the state level, and apart from this, the president and vice president. So it is not only confined towards the central the central election and the state election, but also to the president and the vice president. It is the responsibility of the election commission to make sure that how the election is going to take place. Here, the word including the appointment of election tribunals. Okay, so this is not important for you. This is the amendment which has been mentioned. The word including the appointment of election tribunals for the decisions and of doubts and disputes arising out or of from connection with the election to parliament and to the legislatures of the state. Okay, so this is removed, which is obviously you are not supposed to study. The election commission shall consist of. Now we are talking about the composition. What we are referring to? We are referring to the composition of what? We are referring to the composition of election commission. What does that say? It says that the election commission will consist of chief election commissioner. Okay, the election commission shall consist of a chief election commissioner and such number of other election commissioners. Okay, so it will have other election commissioners also. Other election commissioners, if any, as the president may from time to time fix, and the appointment of the chief election commissioner and other election commissioner shall, subject to the provisions of any law made in that behalf by the parliament, may be made by the president. Okay, so the appointment, okay, how the appointment shall be made of the chief election commissioner and other election commissioner shall be subject to the provisions of law made in that behalf by the parliament. So their elections, how they will be chosen, that will be done by the parliament. Okay, now parliament, and then after decision it will be decided by the president that who shall be the chief election commissioner and who will be the election commissioner. Now, one question for you guys, that how many election commissioners are there? Election commissioners are there presently. Because this is something that you need to figure out. So when we're talking about the composition of the election commission, it is talking about that it will consist of a chief election commissioner and other election commissioners that shall be appointed by, and the appointment of the chief election commissioner shall, subject to the provisions of any law made in their behalf by the parliament and be made by the president. So the parliament will tell you the rules. And based on those rules, the president shall elect the chief election commissioner and the other election commissioners. Now, there is always a point of discussion and obviously a point of debate when we talk about election commission, the chief election commissioner and the election commission's representative being appointed by the parliament. And when we talk about parliament, you know that there are chances that the ruling party has majority there. And once you have the majority, it is obviously easier to exploit how the election is going to take place and how the things needs to be. So in order to make sure that these things are basically neutral, instead of mentioning it on behalf of the government here, it has been mentioned on behalf of the parliament. So parliament consists of the ruling party as well as the opposition. And if there has been rule that has been created, and if we figure out that the ruling party, because of their dominance, okay, once they are in majority, okay, so if the ruling party in majority are taking any actions or any decisions which is contrary or arbitrary to the provisions of the constitution, then any member of the opposition can move to the judiciary, okay, another organ of the government, and they can ask the judiciary to contravene and see through it that whether the elections of the chief election commissioner and the appointment of the chief election commissioner and other commissioners are according to the rules that has been enumerated under the constitution or not. So this helps out in making sure that the elections, the chief election commissioner who will be responsible to have elections take place, so that will be very much helpful in making sure that the elections are free and fair, which is the main agenda of this particular provisions in the constitution which is related to elections. When any other election commissioner is so appointed, the chief election commissioner shall act as the chairman of the election commission. Okay, so when other election commissioners are going to be appointed, it will be on the recommendations of the chief election commissioner that the election commission will appoint the other election commissioners. Okay, before each general election to the House of the People. Okay, now when we talk about the House of the People, it is meaning the lower house or Lok Sabha, and to the legislative assemblies of each state. Okay, legislative assemblies, that is Vidhan Sabha of each state. And before the first general elections and thereafter, and before the first general election and thereafter, before each biennial elections to the legislative council of each state. So whenever there is going to be an election, okay, so at that point of time, the election commission will become active. Having such council, the president may also appoint, after consultation with the election commissioner, such regional commissioners, okay, as he may consider necessary to assist the election commission in the performance of functions conferred on the commission by clause number 1. So apart from the chief election commissioner, okay, apart from the chief election commissioner and the election commissioners, there will be regional commissioners also. So all these three wings of the election commission are going to be responsible for the election to take place in the country. The chief election commissioner obviously will be the head, then there will be election commissioners, and then there will be regional commissioners. Okay, subject to the provisions of any law made by the parliament, the conditions of service and the tenure of the election commissioners and the regional commissioner shall be such as the president may by rule determine. So it shall be the president who will determine that what will be the tenure and the conditions of service for the election commissioner and the regional commissioner, provided that the chief election commissioner shall not be removed from his office except in like manner and on the like grounds as a judge of the Supreme Court, and the conditions of service of the chief election commissioner shall not be varied or to his disadvantage after his appointment. Okay, so how the chief election commissioner shall be removed? The chief election commissioner shall be removed in the same manner as the judge of the Supreme Court. This is an important portion for you guys. So kindly remember this, that whenever, if you talk about, there might be a question in your CLAT examination that if we're talking about the chief election commissioner, the assumption will be that the chief election commissioner shall be removed by the following basis. The first obviously will be put up by a simple majority of the parliament, then there will be according to the impeachment process of the president, then there will be an option that by the judge of the Supreme Court, and then obviously there will be none of the above or any other option that will be applicable. So you have to be very vigilant that whenever you are marking any answer, that you are marking the correct answer, and the answer would be the judge of the Supreme Court whenever we are talking about the removal of the chief election commissioner. Okay, Provide further that any other election commissioner or regional commissioner shall not be removed from the office except on the recommendation of the chief election commissioner. Okay, so the appointment shall be made on the basis of the chief election commissioner, and the removal of the election commissioners or the regional commissioners shall also be based on the recommendation of the chief election commissioner. So chief election commissioner perhaps has been given a little bit more power in comparison to the election commissioners and the regional commissioners. Okay, now what is clause number 6 of Article 324 saying? The president or the governor of the state shall, when so requested by the election commission, make available to the election commission or to regional commission such staff as may be necessary for the discharge of the functions conferred to the election commission by the clause number 1. So whenever you must have seen that if your parents are government employees, they must have some time said to you that there is I have to go and be present as I have been allocated a duty in the elections of the legislative assembly or the elections of the lower house. So whenever they are saying that, it is meaning that the governors, okay, the presidents or the governors of the state has whenever there is a need, the chief election commissioners or the election commissioners or the regional commissioners will request the government or that please provide us with the staff so that we can conduct the elections as such. So at that point of time only, on the request of the election commissioner and the regional commissioner, the president or the governor, depending on where the election needs to take place. If the election is to take place at the central level, that is of the Lok Sabha, it shall be the president who will be addressed when we are talking about lower house or Lok Sabha. And when we are referring to the state legislature, that is Vidhan Sabha. Vidhan Sabha or Vidhan Parishad, which is also known as Legislative Assembly and Legislative Council. So here what is happening here is that whenever there is going to be any election that needs to take place, and obviously the election commissioners and the regional commissioners and the chief election commissioner would be needing the staff, it is through the president or the governor, depending on where the election will take place, they will request to provide the staff for the discharge of their duties. This has also been mentioned under the provisions of the constitution. Now we have completed Article 324, which has explained us that there shall be an chief election commissioner. There will how the appointment of the chief election commissioner will take place, what exactly is election commissioners, and what exactly is regional commissioners, how they will be appointed and how they will be removed, and what exactly is the functions of these election commissioners, regional commissioners, and chief election commissioners. Now let's try to understand what does Article 325 is saying. It is saying that no person to be ineligible for inclusion in or to claim to be included in a special electoral on the grounds of religion, race, caste or sex. So basically Article 325 is nothing but it is talking about the general forms of equality. General forms of equality. Meaning which that there shall be one general electoral roll for every territorial constituency for elections to either house of the parliament or to the either house of the legislatures of the state. Okay, so meaning which there will not be a different electoral roll. Electoral roll means that the list of the voters that are going to give the vote in a particular elections, that is something which we are referring to in a particular territory for every territorial constituency. For every particular territorial constituency. For example, if you are situated in a district of Uttar Pradesh, let's take the example of Noida, okay, and you have 1000 voters here. So these 1000 voters how will be able to know that there are 1000 voters? Through obviously electoral roll. And after the electoral roll, in every territory means, if you're talking about Noida, it is one territory. Then if you talk about Indore, okay, another state, it will be another territory. Mumbai, another territory. Okay, and on the basis of those territory, every territorial constituency, for the elections of either house of the parliament or to the house of either house of the legislatures of the state. Okay, then there will be electoral rolls, and there will be one uniform electoral roll for every territorial constituency. It is not like that if you are going to take elections for Vidhan Parishad, or which is known as the Legislative Assembly, there will be a separate electoral roll. And when we are going to take elections for the Vidhan Sabha, then there will be different electoral rules. In the same way, when you talk about the Lok Sabha and when we talk about the Rajya Sabha, then there will be the same electoral rule, one general electoral rule that will be utilized in order to figure out that how many number of voters are present, and accordingly the election will take place. One important thing that we will have to remember here, that once the electoral rule has to be created, that there shall be no allowance, that no person shall be ineligible for inclusion in any such role on the claims to be included or claim to be included in any special electoral roll for any such constituency on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, or any of them. Meaning which, that there cannot be a special electoral roll for a special class or special religion. Everybody shall be treated equally, and everybody will have to make sure that they are following the electoral rolls and whatsoever has been mentioned under the particular electoral roll itself. Okay. Correct. Now, there is one thing that I would like to tell you here in regards to Article 324. Article 324, which talks about the superintendent's direction and control of the elections be vested in election commissioner, that there was a case, and then I'll just explain you the name of the case. The case is Union of India versus Association of Democratic Reforms, and this is a 2002 case, which said that Article 324 is a reservoir to provide powers or areas untouched by the parliament or the state legislature while making laws regarding elections. So it is giving immense power to the election commissioner. By this particular case law, it has mentioned that whatsoever has been left, whatever are the loopholes or which have been left by the provisions of the constitution, the provisions of the constitution, it shall be completed by the election commission. So it is so important that it is providing that Article 324 is a reservoir to provide powers or areas untouched by the parliament or the state legislature while making laws regarding election. For making right choice by voters, the candidate should reveal criminal cases, assets, etc. Though this rule not mentioned under the rules framed by the legislature, by virtue of Article 324, Election Commission can direct to reveal information of the candidate to contest free and fair election. So in order to make sure that there are free and fair election, the Election Commission can also ask the candidate who is going to stand for the elections, that you need to disclose that if at all there is any criminal cases or assets, etc., whenever you are going to stand for elections. Okay, so this is an important portion, and this is an important case law that you might remember. You might get this in your CLAT examination. That's why I have enumerated it for your better understanding. Correct? Okay, let's move forward. Okay, this is clear? Now, elections to the House of the People and to the Legislative Assembly of the state to be on the basis of adult suffrage. Now, what is adult suffrage? That universal adult franchise, that is the word that is being used, which means that whenever there is an election that needs to take place, the age, the person, any citizen who has attained the age of majority, that is 18 years, is allowed to be in electoral roll. Electoral roll is the same role that we have just explained you for casting vote. The election of the House of the People and to the Legislative Assembly of every state shall, on the basis of adult suffrage, that is to say, every person who is a citizen of India and who is not less than 18 years of age, such date as may be fixed or in behalf by or under the under any law made by any appropriate legislature and not otherwise disqualified under this constitution, or any law made by the appropriate legislature on the ground of non-resistance, unsoundness of mind, crime or corrupt or illegal practice, shall be entitled to be registered as a vote on such elections. Okay, so it is through this article 326 you have been given the power to cast vote. That if you have attained the age of 18, okay, and you are not considered unsound mind, there is no criminal or illegal practices which you have been involved, shall be entitled to be registered as a vote at the any election that is going to take place. So it becomes perhaps a very important point of discussion whenever we are talking about elections as such, that whenever there is going to be an electoral roll, age should be above 18, and apart from the age, there are another requisites. We often tend to forget it, and that is how the CLAT is going to ask you questions, that the candidates who all are CLAT aspirants must have in their mind that whenever we're talking about Article 326, it is only referring to the age, that is 18 years. Apart from that, there are other things also, that is unsoundness of mind, first thing. Second thing, crime or criminal content, or illegal practices. So if somebody has not attained the age of 18 years or is of unsound mind or have criminal or criminal conduct or is involved in illegal practices, they are not allowed to be registered as a voter and they are not allowed to cast vote in the election. And that is an important portion that you need to remember whenever we are talking about the Election Commission and specifically talking about Article 326 of the Constitution. And then when we talk about the rules that the Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commissioner and the Regional Commissioner will take into consideration whenever they are conducting elections, that just we have studied, right, which we were talking about, that the Parliament will make the laws, on the basis of those laws only the elections will take place. Now, whenever we are talking about the Election Commission, they are also supposed to follow some rules which is made by the parliament, and if there is any contravention or any discrepancy in regards to the rules, the election commission is supposed to follow the principles of natural justice. If at all there is any discrepancies or there is any loophole or there is no clarity or there is vagueness that how this particular action will take place, then it is the responsibility of the election commission to make sure that the elections are taking place in a free and fair manner, and they are following the principles of natural justice. What is principles of natural justice? I have explained you in our previous lecture series, so I won't be explaining you again. But yes, the principle of natural justice means that there should be free and fair hearings, and obviously both the parties in regards to the matter should be heard. So the principle of natural justice, if you want to, obviously I can explain you in the upcoming videos again, so that for your better understanding. But what you need to remember when you talk about the election commission, that they are supposed to follow the principles of natural justice whenever they are doing anything in regards to elections. Okay, and this was held in the case, and the name of the case is Election Commission of India versus Subramaniam Swamy. Okay. Okay. Now, one more important point for your remembrance, and that is important if you talk about the case laws as such in regards to the elections, and that is there was a case with the name of T.N. Seshan versus Union of India, which suggested that the chief election commissioner is almost the same as election commissioner, but he is considered to be the one amongst equal. So in the same way, when you talk about the Chief Justice of India and the judges of the Supreme Court, or perhaps both have the same powers and the same utilities, he is just considered in the same manner, just the way of the Chief Justice of India. The Chief Election Commissioner was also considered to be the first among equals, and no special power shall be given and provided to the Chief Election Commissioner, apart from obviously giving the recommendation for the appointment of Election Commission and the regional commissions. Okay. Now, let's move forward and see what is other thing. That yes, when you talk about Article 326 and when you talk about the universe on the basis of adult suffrage, then the first question that should have come in your mind, that sir, why is it so necessary that we are following this particular criteria of adult suffrage? So this was also answered in a case law. The name of the case law is R.C. Pudgal versus Union of India. In this case, it was held that in order to ensure the secular character of the Constitution, it perhaps becomes important to follow the adult suffrage, that is universal adult suffrage, that is the age of 18 to be universal for every person to be named in the electoral roll so that they can cast their vote. So that is why it is important, and Another point is to secular character, and apart from that, political equality to all citizens of India. Okay. So political equality to all citizens of India, and to ensure the secular character of the constitution, it has been the universal adult suffrage as the criteria to make sure that you are allotted a place in the electoral roll, and you are supposed to cast vote and to get uh, the leader of your choice. Okay, that is how the democracy works, right? Now, power of the parliament to make provisions with respect to the elections of the legislatures. Subject to the provisions, this particularly is not that much important for you, but just a superficial reading will be much more sufficient. Subject to the provisions of this constitution, parliament may from time to time by law make provisions with respect to all matters relating to or in connection with election to either house of the parliament or to the house or either house of the legislatures of the state, including the preparation of the electoral rolls, the delimitation of the constituencies, and other matters necessary for securing the due constitution of such house or houses. Okay. Now, this is not due constitution, actually, this is due consultation of such house or houses. Now, moving forward, and let's see what Article 328 is saying. It is saying the power of the legislatures of the state to make provisions in respect to the elections of the such legislature. So now, in the same way, the parliament was given the power to make rules in regards to the election that is going to take place in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. In the same way, the legislatures of the state has been given the power that they can make the rules and the regulations in regards to the state legislatures. Okay, subject to the provisions of the constitution, and in so far as provisions that behalf is not made by the parliament. Now, important point. And in so far as provisions in that behalf is not made by the parliament. So the parliament has been allotted two powers. The parliament is making rules not only for the center but also for the state. Okay. Now, whatsoever has been made by the center, then it is going to prevail, because it has been made by the center. Then obviously it has much more significance, and that is why it is going to prevail. And if you talk about how it is going to be related, then if you remember that we have talked about the union list, the state list, and the central list, where which we have discussed that it is important that there are certain areas on which the center will make the laws. There are certain areas on which the state shall make the laws, and then there are certain areas where which both the state and the center can make the laws, but obviously the central laws will prevail. And this is what actually federalism is all about when we talked about the preamble. So when we talk about parliament and we talk about elections, so if there is any rule that has been made by the center, that rule is going to prevail. But if there is anything which has been left, it is the duty of the state to make sure that that particular rule or the laws being framed in regards to the elections for that particular legislature itself, subject to the provision of the constitution, and in so far as in that behalf is not made by the parliament. Okay, I just informed you the same. The legislatures of the state may from time to time by law make provisions with respect to all matters relating to what? Or in connection with the elections of the state or elections of the either house of the legislatures of the state, including the preparation of electoral rolls and all other matters necessary for securing the due constitution of each house or houses. Okay, so now this specifically talks about that it is not only the parliament is going to make the laws, but the state legislatures has also been given the powers to make laws in regards to the election of the elections that is going to take place in the country. Okay. Now, this has been removed by bar to interference by the courts in electoral matters. Now, the courts have been given the authority to check if there is any discrepancies. If there is any discrepancies in regards to the electoral matters, then it can be referred to the courts itself. And it has been removed by the 39th Amendment Act for certain words. The words, figure and letter, but subject to the provisions of are omitted, the Constitution 43. Okay. The validity of any law relating to the delimitation of the constituency or the allotment of seats to the constituency made for under Article 327 shall not be called in question in court. This has been removed. So now it can be questioned in court. No election to each house of the parliaments or shall be called except by an election petition presented by such authority and in such matter. So this has also been removed. Now you can directly approach to the court if you feel like that there is certain discrepancies or there is any conflict in regards to the election that has taken place in the country. Okay. Now, special provisions as to elections of the parliament in the case of the prime minister and the speaker, this has also been omitted. So you need not study in regards to the same. So now the important point that you need to remember here is in regards to Article 326, that how the elections will take place. It is going to take place to universal adult suffrage and the case laws that I have just explained you. Apart from that, what are the things that will eliminate or will stop you from making your names in the electoral rolls? That is, if you are unsound mind, if you have criminal contempt, or you have been criminal offender, or you have been involved in illegal practices. If these things are present, then obviously you will not be allowed to cast your name in the electoral college. But if eventually you have if you have attained the age of 18 and you are not unsound mind and you are not involved in criminal practices or illegal practices, then obviously your name will be registered in the electoral roll and you are supposed to vote. By Article 326, you are getting the power to vote in the election. Then we have talked about the Article 324, which is perhaps the main important article in regards to the election commission and how the whole process of election shall take place. Okay. All the rules, where the election shall take place, when, at what time the election shall take place, how many people will be there, everything shall be decided by the rules of the parliament itself. When we talk about the election that is going to take place at the lower house or the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha also. And in the same manner, if we talk about the state legislations, then it is the governor who is going to decide that how the elections is going to take place. So in total, it is the rules that is going to be made by the legislatures itself, which is going to determine that how the process shall take place. But the constitution is safeguarding by creating a statutory authority, which is the election commission, which shall obviously be appointed by the parliament and by the rules of the parliament and by the president. That election commissioner is going to superintend, direct and control the election that is going to take place in the country. So this is what is all about the election of the parliament, election in regards to the parliament. And okay, one important point which I've just missed, I'm just going to explain you. When we talked about the interference of the courts, now here there is a general misconception by the students that it will be the Supreme Court who is the rightful authority to approach to whenever there is any dispute in regards to the election. But in the case of Durga Shankar Mehta versus Raghuraj Singh, Durga Shankar Mehta versus Raghu Raj Singh. It was held that Supreme Court is not the rightful authority to approach to whenever there is any dispute in regards to the elections. It is the High Court of that particular area. It is the High Court to whom one should resort, and it should be considered as a tribunal regarding any matters related to the elections. This is an important point of discussion, and this is perhaps very important for you to remember also, that whenever there is any dispute, it should not be the Supreme Court who should be resorted to in regards to the election matters. It should be the High Court who should be resorted to. High Court to be the appropriate authority to listen to the disputes regarding the elections. It's a very important point, and that is, if you will remember, then obviously it will be going to fetch good marks in your examination. That it is not the Supreme Court, but rather the High Court who has been given and entrusted the power to listen to the disputes relating to the constitution, relating to the elections of the election that is going to take place. So now, that is why it is important for you to check through it, that what exactly are the things which is relevant in regards to your constitution, in regards to your elections. And when you talk about election commission and such, and part 15 and such, the important point to that needs to be remembered when you talk about CLAT examination is that we have to be very much vigilant and very much clear in regards to how the election is going to take place, and in regards to the election, how the Election Commission of India and how the Election Commission and the Chief Election Commissioners and the Regional Commissioners are going to help in the election to take place. Article 326 is important for you to remember, because there might be question that will be put up in front of you. And obviously Article 329, which talks about that it is not the Supreme Court, but rather the High Court who has been given this authority to make the laws in regard to see the disputes in regards to the election matters. With this, I would like to thank you all again for being present in this video. I suppose you were able to understand how the elections is going to take place and what are the provisions which has been enumerated in regards to the elections of India. And in the same manner, we are going to discuss in our upcoming videos in regards to the amendment procedure and what exactly is the emergency provisions that has been enumerated under the Constitution in India. I would request you all to kindly revise whatsoever we have studied and see through it, that how the questions has been put up in front of you when you are going to appear for the examination. For that, what you need to do is you need to quickly grasp any mock test paper or previous year question papers and see through it, that how the questions has been put up in regards to the Election Commission and how the questions has been framed, and so that you are well versed that how the questions will be there and how you have to manage and understand and analyze this particular the provisions of the Constitution. Okay, I'll thank you all again for being present in the video. Till then, take care and bye-bye.